All right. So I'm here with Markus Laakso from Kuolemanlaakso, who composed what I think is my favorite album of 2022. So that's very fun. I gave it a rave review, and it's gonna be fun to talk a bit about your band and about the concepts of the album. Kuusumu is a wonderful blend of death doom and some gothic underpinnings, I think, that makes it really accessible and memorable, but also really just fucking heavy, metal. And on top of that, it has a fantastic theme about an honest-to-God apocalyptic event that took place around year 500, when the sun was covered and people in Finland had to resort to cannibalism to survive, right?
Well, it wasn't only in Finland. It was like a global thing. So since there's not that much written history from Finland before the 1200s, so I read a lot of, or did a lot of research on other countries. For example, there's a pretty well documented history of Rome, and then there's stuff from the UK and China and South Africa, actually.
Oh, so far away.
Yeah, so I kind of combined different elements and also imagined what it would have been like in Finland during those days, and sort of mixed like ancient Finnish beliefs and ancient Finnish chant poems, and sort of like that was the frame of reference for my lyrics. And I think it was like when I came across this topic, I wrote a book about the Finnish folk metal scene called Folk Metal Big Five, and there's like 5 biggest folk metal bands in Finland, meaning Korpiklaani, Ensiferum, Moonsorrow, Fintroll, and Turisas.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was doing research for the book, or it was actually after I was watching this documentary about the Viking Age, and in that documentary, this one scholar started like explaining what had happened before the Viking times, and I was like, "What? I've never heard about this period of time in history." So I started researching and finding books about this topic, and it was actually quite hard to find stuff about that. But there's this one book which is sort of like controversial, but it has a lot of texts from that specific period, like original texts that have been translated to English, called Catastrophe by David Keyes. And I strongly recommend checking that book out if you're interested to find out more about this super doomy and metal concept.
Yeah.
But that was like a no-brainer. When I first heard about that, I was like, yes, this is the stuff that I want to get into and sort of like interpret with my or this metal music that this band makes. So it was like match made in somewhere.
in between heaven and hell, perhaps.
Yeah.
So it's not your first album. You had Uljas Uusi Maailma, and then Tuliotsen, and then you also made the Gothic tapes, which was a bit different, right? Yeah. So how did that come to be, and how did that Gothic album you made take its way into Kuusumu?
Well, I first started the band actually started as my solo project in 2010, and I had plans to just recruit a drummer, which is the drummer that I actually recruited for the band, Tiera. And I had planned to make just one album. I was so inspired by the debut album of Triptychon, so I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good, really good one.
yeah,
And you also had the same producer as Triptychon, right? For Kuusumu.
yeah. The guitar player of Triptychon has produced the Triptychon albums and like recorded and mixed them, as well as all the Kuolemanlaakso albums. So that was really great to have that guy on board, because I was thinking of a dude who could make a sound some like sort of similar to that album, and I was like, yeah, that guy who made it, I'm gonna ask him.
Yeah, you did right doing that, absolutely, because the album sounds really great. I mean, the guitars are so heavy.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially, there are so many good riffs, but my favorite one is, that breakdown in Tulessa Cavalier when
Yeah.
the guitar just gets even fucking heavier.
Yeah.
It's such a great thing to listen to. I never get tired of it.
Yeah, it's that part is really cool in my opinion too. But anyways, it was in 2011 that I met Santura here in Finland, and I originally asked him that if he would be interested in mixing the Kuolemanlaakso album that we were planning to make. But then again, we just ended up flying to his studio in Germany and recording the whole thing there, and he has made all our albums since. And but yeah, that was our first album came out in 2012, and then we recorded Tulijoutsen and released it in 2014. And after that, our singer, who also sings in Swallow the Sun, was super busy with his band, and he was working at this bar during those days, so he was like super busy. And Swallow the Sun recorded a triple album, like at least 3 albums on the same in the same package. So he was like super busy with that. So I just thought that, hey, I have some spare time and I feel like doing something completely different. So that's how the Gothic Tapes album came to be. I just thought that I'm gonna just use the Kuolemanlaakso stamp on it in the same way as Kiss did back in '78 when they released those Kiss solo albums. So I got the guys from Kuolemanlaakso to play on it, and that's why I wanted to have it stand out. Like it was completely different from anything else that Kuolemanlaakso had done. That's why I chose to sing in English and then have my name on the album cover, so that people would sort of understand that it's something different than just regular original Kuolemanlaakso album. And I think that was sort of a mistake, because I've never thought about the album as a Kuolemanlaakso album. It's my solo album. And
well, the name Kuolemanlaakso still contains your name, Markus Laakso. So
yeah, and it started as my solo project. So I thought that, hey, maybe I'll just do a solo album and have that Kuolemanlaakso stamp on it, since the guys play on it. So, and even Mikko did some backing vocals on a couple of songs. But yeah, then after that I was like super exhausted and very busy with other stuff. I wrote 2 books and did some other music stuff and had a day job. So that's why it took such a long time to get back to writing stuff for Kuolemanlaakso and recording. But then COVID came, and I got laid off from work for like I don't know, 6 months or something like that. And then I applied for some art grants, and I actually got 3 of them, which meant that I didn't have any financial pressure to, where I'm going to get money to pay my bills. So I had the perfect opportunity to concentrate like 1000% on making the Kuolemanlaakso album. And I think we succeeded to make our best album by far with Kuusumu. And
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's really a step up from the other albums. I like Tulijoutsen and Uljas Uusi Maailma as well, but Kuusumu has that extra oomph, to it that really makes it all gel together, and it makes something really unique.
Yeah, and I think you can actually hear that from that album that everything is very like precisely thought of, and there's like on Tulijoutsen and Uljas Uusi Maailma, in my opinion, there are like parts that could have been like edited out or made shorter or have some melody on top or whatever. But on this album, the arrangements are very well thought of, and I actually had some help from Aleksi Munter, previously known from Swallow the Sun, and he has been making orchestrations for Insomnium and Ghost Brigade and many other bands, and he's a good friend of mine. And I have made all the keyboard parts by myself in this particular room for the other album. And I actually wrote a lot of stuff, keyboard stuff for this album too, but I then sent them to Aleksi and told him to work his magic on them. So he ended up using some of my parts and then writing like new parts, like keyboard parts to them. And these keyboards are like, well, he's a much better keyboardist than I am, so, and it can be heard on this album.
Yeah, I mean, it's his instrument, so he should know best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the keyboard parts are really fantastic. They add that extra spice to the album, that might have been missing in the previous albums.
Yeah, pretty much. And like you mentioned, Tulessa Kävelijä, I think the keyboards on the verses of that song are like brilliant, and
yes.
And on Surun Sinfonia, the C part of that with the like Celtic violin parts.
Yeah, that's like a Celtic dirge almost. It's
yeah, that's pretty much my favorite part of the whole album.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I agree. So you did write the keyboard parts, then he rearranged it a bit. Or put more stuff to it.
Yeah, I wrote keyboards to pretty much all the songs except what's that one? So Juuret jalkojeni alla, that was on the EP.
Yes.
And but Aleksi did write like keyboard parts to pretty much all the songs, at least a little bit, except Katkeruuden Malja. That song only has like one track of piano.
Yes.
Which I wrote, but he just changed the sound.
Yeah, and speaking of Katkeruuden Malja, you had a lot of help from Lotta Ruutiainen as well.
Yeah.
She really also adds that extra spice, a little bit of this gothic metal spice to that song in the chorus. Did she help in writing as well, or did you write?
Well, when I write songs or actually lyrics to songs, I always have the melody and the rhythm in mind. So when I'm writing, so I usually write one line and then I make a demo of it, so I don't forget.
Yeah.
And then I wrote all the vocal parts to that song, but there's this one extra line that she came up with on the chorus, because she also sings in the C part, and that's pretty much note to note what I had demoed. But there's one part which made the whole chorus better. The last part of the last line of the chorus.
Yeah.
And Lotta is an old friend of mine. I've known her since she was 16, and she's much younger than I am. But we used to play in the same traditional doom band. Like, I don't know which year it was, 2000 and something, the first decade of 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's just such a brilliant vocalist and a super cool person to work with. And I just sent her the songs, and she came up with like, I don't know how many tracks she had, like maybe 16 tracks with different harmonies on top. And she was like, yeah, feel free to use whatever you want. And I was like listening on solo, and I was like, what the hell? Let's take out all the instruments and just have an a cappella.
Yeah. Oh, so that must have been quite hard to choose which ones to use then.
Well, I personally just sent all the tracks to Santura and told him to pick the ones that he feels that the song needs. But yeah, in my mind, I would have used more of her tracks on top of each other, because I'm not a studio engineer mixing guy. I just usually want to go over the top as far as vocals and keyboards are concerned, but it's good to have somebody, you know,
to bring it down to earth a bit. So what bands are your main inspiration? You mentioned Triptykon, of course, but also there's a lot of gothic on the album as well, and also you made that gothic album. So what bands do you listen to and are inspired by mostly?
Well, it's kind of hard to say. On the first album, it was obvious that I was very much inspired by Triptykon. On the second one, it was, I think the first album I had like one rule to myself when I was writing the songs. I wanted every single riff to be as heavy or depressive or melancholic as possible. And that album came out super heavy. And on the second one, I think there's like more My Dying Bride on it than Triptykon. And it has like, all of the Kuolemanlaakso albums are quite varied, and I think this last one is like super varied. Every song is quite different from each other, and
yeah, they have their own identity, definitely.
Yeah, there wasn't like a specific band that I was listening to or like consciously trying to, take influences from. But like, for example, Pedon Vaisto, which has like black metal.
It's a bit, yeah. In the end, there's this really with blast beats and stuff.
Yeah, and I think the first riff on that sort of sounds like the now diabolical era Satyricon, and then there's that part that small part just before the fast part kicks in. I had like I told the guys that this is the Burzum part with the keyboard stuff, and the last part is sort of like stripped down Emperor or something.
Yeah, it's very cool to have, and that's one of the things I think that I like most about Kuusumu is really that variation. There's still a very high quality on every song, but they are very varied, and you can hear a lot of different genres combined, and you still manage to make your own sound of it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. What our sound is about. It's a mishmash of a lot of stuff that we like combined. And I think when we recorded this album, we also recorded the EP during the same time, and it was actually quite easy to pick out which songs would make the best album and in which order. And Santura pretty much helped us out, or gave his opinion that he thinks that these songs should be on the album in this order. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. Like, I mean, literally exactly the same songs, same song order. And I think if you would have switched a song from if you took out one song from Kuusumu and switched it with another song from the EP, the whole arch of drama would be like very different, and it wouldn't work as well. So I think it was the perfect mix of songs on both the EP and the album. And for example, if you took out Pedon Vaisto and replaced it with, like, say, Rautasiivet from the EP, it would have made the whole entity of Kuusumu much more melancholic and not so aggressive.
Yes, because Pedon Vaisto really adds that extra the black metal, and before the big finish, it really amps it up.
Yeah.
And then Tulesa Cavalier just comes along and brings it all down into this super heavy doom deathy ending.
Yeah, that's true. And it was obvious from the very beginning when I wrote Tulesa Cavalier, that what can you have after that? It has to be the ending song of the album.
And also the lyric wise, it's pretty perfect as well, because it ends with him dancing around the fire having eaten someone else, and Pedon Vaisto is when this beastly instinct comes from within him, that he has to eat something.
Yeah, and on Tulessa Cavalier, that actually the chorus is that's a reference to China, when those people had been like worshipping their own gods or entities, and people thought that they had angered the gods, and that's why because there was like a cloud of volcanic ash which made the sun disappear pretty much for a year and a half. And during those times, you couldn't see the sun, and then it started raining. And I think it's due to the fact that it was most likely a volcanic ash which filled the sky. But the rain came down as blood colored. So people were actually thinking that, what the fuck? Angered the gods, and this shit will last forever. And it's literally raining blood from the sky.
Yeah, and that's what the chorus says. The sky is purple, blood is raining from the clouds.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a direct reference to like 536 AD China.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I thought it was really based on, because this apocalypse, it shows up in a lot of mythologies. I mean, I read that it's probably the main inspiration for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And also a lot of references to it in the Kalevala.
Yeah, it has been. Like some people think that, yeah.
Because there's this amorphic. Yeah, sorry.
I think the Ragnarok reference is probably true, because people have lived that time, and it has probably been passed on as something horrible that happened, and it was the end of the world and stuff like that. And actually Surusta Meri Suolainen, which is one of the doomier tracks on the album. That song is about when that volcanic winter was going on, and in 541 there were these merchant ships that came from Africa to Europe because rich people wanted to buy some ivory for their, I don't know, palaces or something. And on those merchant ships there were rats who carried the plague. So the bubonic plague erupted in Europe, killing like 1/3 of the population, on top of having a 10-year-long winter. And scholars have been saying that that was the worst time in human history to be alive. What's doomier than that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's like
that's pretty much
it's the most metal thing possible.
Yeah, and that song is actually when there was it's called the Justinian plague because there was this emperor in Rome called, I don't know what it's in English, Justin something, not Bieber,
yeah,
but emperor anyway. And there were like tens of thousands of dead bodies lying everywhere because, well, it's quite infectious, the disease that killed them. So the emperor told his guys that, hey, pile these corpses on boats because there's no space to put them anywhere. All the graveyards and all the places are full of bodies. So just pile them up on ships and then take them, like, just cast the bodies into the sea. And there were so many bodies that they came to the shore again when the tide came in, and they had been, like, you know, glued to each other with some pus.
Shit.
That song is based on those events. It's called Sea Salty of Sorrow, which is a reference to, you know, everybody's loved ones dying and being cast into the sea. So
yeah, they just get rid of them and they just come back to you anyway.
yeah. I think the fish and sharks and whatever have had like a party with that much food floating.
Yeah.
Kind of a morbid thing to say. I'm sorry, but these are true events. True historical events.
Yeah, it sounds definitely like the worst time ever to be alive, and they didn't have any science and stuff, medical stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
They just thought that, yeah, it's a punishment from the gods, because what else could they believe? I mean,
yeah, and it just wouldn't go away. It just lasted and lasted, and everybody was like, well, you can imagine the amount of stress it would have caused in people.
Absolutely.
And Pedonvaisto is, well, since the sun didn't shine for a year and a half, which meant that the crops wouldn't grow and the cattle died and there was like no source of food anywhere, which actually did cause cannibalism. But in that specific song, there's like a I was sort of inspired by The Reverend, starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was like something that there's this one scene where Leonardo DiCaprio is like crawling with his, he had been fighting a bear, crawling on the snow, and I was inspired by that scene and those events and sort of like combined them into this story.
Yeah, so there was a lot of different sources of inspiration for the different songs. Maybe that's why they sound a bit different as well, or what do you think?
Yeah, could be. And I usually, and then there's like direct references to Finnish chant poems from, I don't know, days of the way back. Like
Yes.
Kuohuista tulisten koskien is pretty much based only on those poems, but I thought that it was like a pagan prayer in my mind.
Yeah, and also in the first track, you have the protagonist calling out to the Finnish gods.
Yeah, exactly. That song. It was also obvious that when I wrote that song and the intro to that song, it was obvious that this is the way that the album starts, and that it pretty much paints the picture. It's everything's all right in the beginning, but then there's like thunder and really beautiful but ominous, like dark clouds gathering, and then the whole shit kicks in when the guitars kick in.
Yeah.
And I tried to paint that like image with music, and that song is about the winter coming along and the darkness rising, and then what it must have caused in the minds of Finnish people living in the woods, and they're like, what the hell is going on? The sun disappears, and year and a half long winter kicks in, which they must have thought that would last forever, and yeah, that's pretty much like a call for help. Please, God of the forest, grant us this and this, and God of the lake and the water.
Spare us the game in the woods, and bring back the moon again, and stuff like that. And the lyrics really reflect the music there as well, because at first Pimeus Lask is like the darkness is falling.
Yeah.
And then this fast part kicks in where they start calling to the gods, and it leads perfectly into the second song as well, because that's one of the more upbeat gothic song about like love and loss, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I had in that song, I had this old couple in mind. Like, I imagined this old couple living in this like wooden hut in Finland when that happened, and it's pretty much about the female one dying and this other guy just thinking that I lost the love of my life. I'm alone here in this world, and I just this intolerable pain in my heart is killing me. That's basically the point of that song.
Yeah, the cup of bitterness, or the cup of sorrow.
Yeah. And we actually have a beer called Katkeronen.
Yes, I haven't tried it. I don't know if I can get it here in Sweden. Maybe it's at Systembolaget. I don't know. I could probably order it from there.
Yeah, you can order it from the local Systembolaget, which is Alko here in Finland. They stock it, but perhaps those guys are cooperating with each other. I don't know.
But this apocalypse, do you think it also have inspired lots of events in Finnish mythology in the Kalevala? Because it brings to mind this old Amorphis song on Rich and Poor, where they sing, we cannot live without the sun or manage without the moonlight. And those lyrics are taken directly from the Kalevala.
Yeah, on that album is actually from Kanteletar, which is sort of like
I thought that was Elegy that was from Kanteletar.
Oh, you were talking about
I thought Tales from the Thousand, which I have right here on the wall.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's directly from Kalevala, or the English translation of Kalevala. I actually wrote the book about Amorphis.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
but maybe on Rich and Poor actually is from Elegy, now that I think of it.
Yeah,
you're probably right. Yeah, it's from the Kanteletar.
Yeah, but I don't know. I've never thought about it that way. But since now that you mentioned it, it could be a reference to that.
You wrote a book about Amorphis?
Yeah.
Oh.
It just released actually in English. I don't have copies here, but I have some in the next room. But
What's
yeah,
it called?
it's called Amorphous.
Oh, well, obviously. So that must be they're one of your favorite bands, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And mine as well.
Actually, you were talking about influences on these albums. There's Kuohuista Tulisten koskien, the fourth track on the album. That definitely has like an old Amorphous vibe to the melody.
Yes.
I had like another song that I wanted to record for the album, but I thought that this sounds great, but it sounds too much like Amorphous. I'm not going to do that because people will probably who have been following what I've been doing, they're like, okay, you wrote the book about Amorphous and stealing their music. That's something that I don't want to do, but I think Kuusumu Tulisten koskien, the vibe of the main melody is
yeah, it definitely brings to mind like elegy era Amorphous, I think.
Yeah, but I think in a good way. It's not. It sounds like Amorphous, but it doesn't sound like any of their particular songs that I can think of. Yeah.
No, it's not so much that it sounds like plagiarism. Absolutely not. And also you have Mikko's vocals, which brings a different element to it, and a little bit more of the doomier vibe as well. So
yeah, and actually, it's quite a fun story. The recording of the vocals in that song. Mikko came to the studio for 4 days, and he did the vocals for the EP and the album during the same sessions. And on the very last day, I hadn't finished the lyrics to that song on the previous evening, so I stayed up late writing them, and then woke up early and continued. And then when Mikko woke up in the morning and Santura woke up in the morning, Mikko came to my room and said that, "Hey, where are the lyrics? One song." And I was like, "Well, here, just finished." And
those are about like the title translates to something like from the seething rapids,
yeah.
and that refers to the frothing of the mouth, right?
Well, no, that actually the title of that song is like from the fiery rapids.
Oh, yeah.
Tuli is fire, so
Yes.
but yeah, then I Mikko asked if I have like something in mind as far as the like style of vocals and the rhythmic part of the lyrics is concerned. So I just said that, yeah, well, yeah, I have this thing in mind. I'll just, Santura, please record me. And I just spoke the parts that the way that I heard them in my head, and told Mikko that, yeah, just do whatever you want. Just do it with growls. And he was like, he listened to it once, maybe twice, and we had the whole day to record that song. But he did everything. I think it took him like 20 minutes to nail the vocals to that song. He basically did all the parts once or twice max, and then just doubled something, and Santura either used or didn't use them. But it took him 20 minutes to nail that song in the studio.
Oh, that's impressive, because the lyrics are quite complicated. I mean, well, you speak Finnish, so of course they're easy for you. But yeah. I who speak a little Finnish, it's still like Kuohuista Tulisten koskien. It's very rhythmic in the title and also in the song when he sings it. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and he actually told me like after the session that that is his favorite song from the album. I think it. I don't know. It came out so easily from him, and he always says that, yeah, these growling vocals, they're so easy to make, and I had a specific vocal style in mind when I was working on Katkeruuden Maalia. That song is, if I were to compare it to another band, I would say at least the vocal style is influenced by Tribulation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I told Mikko that, hey, can you do this like Tribulation style? Don't do the black metal squeaks, and don't go like full growling. Just do something in between. And then he did that song in like, I don't know, half an hour or something. And then I asked him that, so was that, hard for you to do because you're used to doing like different styles? He was like, what? That's the easiest thing in the world. It's like doing it half-assed. I was like, yeah, good point.
Man, it must have been a blast to work with him then.
Yeah, he was in a mellow mood, which is important. It was really super tough to record this album, and we actually ended up spending a week extra in the studio because it was so difficult. We had like a bunch of like technical issues. We had to reamp like almost all the guitars that we had recorded at another place, and then there was like a bunch of stressful stuff happening. And when Mikko came to the studio, like every stressful thing had been already dealt with. So it was like super mellow for him, but very stressful for everybody else.
Well, that extra week must have been. I mean, it turned out very great. So that extra week must have been worth it.
Yeah, not the cheapest album we made, but the best.
Yeah. I can't help but notice we have the same chair, and it's named after you, right?
Yeah.
It's the Markus chair from IKEA.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, do you have any plans to come to Sweden to play?
No plans to play outside Finland, unfortunately. We were scheduled to do a European tour, which got postponed thanks to COVID, and it would have been in April of this of 2022 with Dark Fortress and The Spirit from Germany, but since it got postponed for 13 months, it overlaps with a European tour with Swallow the Sun. So our vocalist obviously is on the road with those guys, and we can't make the tour. That sucks.
Well, maybe I'll come to Finland to watch you. It's not so far away.
Yeah,
it's just a boat away.
Exactly.
I haven't been to Finland since I was a little kid, so it would be fun.
Yeah, please do. If you wanna, there's like an electronic drum kit behind me. That was also one of the differences between all the other Kuolemanlaakso albums and this album. I bought this set just because I wanted to like do pre-production for the drums as well as possible. So I just, whenever I finished a song, I made sucky electronic drum beats with my computer, like Easy Drummer drum beats.
Yes.
And I know absolutely nothing about playing drums. I'm the worst drummer in the world. But
no, you're probably not worse than me. I can't. I mean, I can with my hands, but then when you're gonna combine it with the kick, I just lose everything. I can't.
Exactly.
For the life of me. I mean,
same time. Da, da, da.
Yeah. I can play keyboards, but I can't play anything else, and I absolutely can't play drums.
Yeah, same here. But since I bought the drums, that was for this particular album, and just because I'm sitting in my home studio where I wrote the album, and where I record my other bands and demos as well. And yeah, so I bought this electronic drum kit, and then when I finished the song, then I phoned up our drummer and told him that, yeah, there's this song, check out your email. I put my sucky drum version on it, and then a version without drums. Please don't listen to my version. Go to the rehearsal place and figure out what you want to play in there. And if there's like if you can't think of anything, then check out my demo. And
yeah, you have a template at least.
Yeah, exactly. And then when he was like finished with his ideas, he phoned me up, and then we recorded a drum demo here in my home studio with this electronic drum kit. And then we worked on the drum arrangements together, and sometimes he just nailed it. His ideas were like super great, but some parts were not, where I was like thinking of something fast, he had some super slow things. So it was like a dialogue between me and him. And then I tried to beatbox the beats. Hey, do this. And it was super fun. And I'm so happy that I bought this drum kit. That I think the drums on this album are like so much better than on everything else we rehearsed or released, because we on those previous albums, not all the songs were as finished before entering the studio than this time. So it allowed our drummer to, rehearse his parts like 100%. So he was very confident in what he was playing, and he didn't have to try to figure things out. He could just concentrate on nailing his awesome beats.
So you mentioned other bands you have.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware. Which are those?
Well, me and actually the drummer guy Tierra were in a band, like a dream pop band called Her Shadow.
Okay.
We released our debut album in I think it was November, so it's almost brand new.
Our Shadow.
Her Shadow.
Her Shadow.
Yeah.
I will check it out.
The album is called The Ghost Love Chronicles, and it's that album is specifically inspired by the soundtrack and the atmosphere of Twin Peaks.
Oh, because I love Twin Peaks, and I love everything by David Lynch.
Me too.
Especially Lost Highway and Inland Empire. I love the hell out of those movies. But you had on Tuliots, and you had a Twin Peaks song.
Yes, we did.
And it really sounds like the Twin Peaks soundtrack as well. This kind of lounge music.
Yeah.
And the Badalamenti stuff,
Exactly. And that was one of those songs that I didn't have lyrics for. And that was one of those last day of recording vocals sort of things. We were recording the vocals at this cabin in middle part of Finland, and I knew that song is a Twin Peaks song. So I was watching the final episode of Twin Peaks and writing the lyrics.
Yeah, of course, because it's about Cooper sitting in the red room waiting for 25 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's very cool. I really like the touch that brings to the Tuliots album. I listened to it a lot.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs on that album. And yeah, on that Dream Pop album, it's also inspired by the works of Lana Del Rey, which is like
I like her too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love her. She's so great. Those two were the main influences, but then it took a life of its own. So it's there's like 50 stuff in there, and but the atmosphere is very Twin Peaks. So it's sort of like
sounds like I really need to check this out.
please do. We've been like getting so much good press, and the reviews have been like insanely great. And
Maybe it's something for our wait a minute, this isn't metal article series then.
yeah. Well, I think it has been reviewed by many metal publications, and everybody has been loving it. I don't know. It's probably because we have a background in making metal music, so everybody's checking it out. So, but yeah, we made that album last year too, and now I'm working on a new band. It's called the Ghoul Stars, and
okay.
And we just did our first live show in December, and it also features Kuolemanlaakso's drummer Tiera, which is like my main guy. Whenever I make music, that's the first guy I call.
Uh-huh.
He's so mellow and so easy to work with and so talented. But yeah, and then there's a guy called Markus Makkonen who used to sing and play bass in Hooded Menace, and then he has a couple of other bands, Sadistic Forest and Nerve Saw, and the music is sort of like horror punk meets extreme metal, so it's sort of like a combination of, or a mishmash of, the Misfits and White Zombie and Entombed and Venom. Something
that sounds
like that.
Also very interesting.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. It's so stressless. Kuolemanlaakso is super stressful when it comes to like writing lyrics and stuff like that, and I take it very, very seriously. But this is just a super fun project, and it's like it has like spoken word movie samples from like old horror, B horror and sci-fi movies, and super fun.
Oh, well, that sounds interesting. Then I have two things to check out and look forward to.
Yeah, we haven't released anything publicly with the Ghoul Stars, but we're planning on recording an album in May of this year.
Yeah, okay, very cool. All right, so well, I appreciate a lot that you took the time to talk to me. Is there anything you would like to say before we finish?
I would like to thank everybody who has listened to the whole thing, as it's so long. So thank you for time and patience, and thank you for digging our stuff and really understanding what we're doing.
Yeah, well, it's my favorite album of 2022. And I listen to a lot of stuff because I'm a reviewer. So
yeah,
there's a lot of competition there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I like the most about it is like this. I think do you think there's a bit of a language barrier to it, maybe? Because I really like these alien pictures the lyrics paint in my mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Finnish is such a harsh language with the R's and hard K's and SS and everything. So I think when I was starting this band out, I thought about the language, but then I think the melody sounded so Finnish that it would have made no sense to go English, even though we probably sell many more albums if it was in English. But I don't know. It takes away some of the magic if it's in.
Yeah, but Finnish is also a very poetic language. I mean, you Finns, you didn't have any right. I mean, alphabet until you were Christianized by Sweden. So everything was oral tradition. So the language is sort of developed to be sung, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, and there was like on the eastern parts of Finland, there was a big culture of I don't know what it's called, but this sort of like wailing songs that people sang.
Laments, maybe.
Laments, yes, yeah, and yeah, there's a big tradition of singing poetry in the
Yeah,
eastern parts of
and it's
Finland.
very easy to rhyme in Finnish because everything ends with a vowel. And
Pretty much, yeah.
so,
But yeah, I sort of like painted myself in a corner with this band because I tend to write in like sort of early 1900s or late 1800s old Finnish
yeah,
poets.
it's a bit archaic.
It is, and it's very hard to do that, or time consuming because I pretty much have to make up words and then find words from like old books and combine them with a message and a story, and it's really difficult.
But it also fits the theme of the album because it took place such a long time ago.
Yeah, and it's also apparent on the older albums as well, but yeah, that's like my cross that I have to bury or carry. It just has to be that way.
Yeah, you dug that hole yourself. Now you'll have to sit in it.
Yeah, exactly. This is my burial ground. I dug it.
Dig your own grave.
Yeah. But it's kind of hard. I can't change it. I can't go like full modern. I can't talk about cars and pizzas and whatever modern things. It
Yeah,
has
like
time and age.
Kotiteollisuus did. They started out with this like poetic like Christian biblical type of stuff, and now they sing about living in the modern world instead. So
Yeah. Well, obviously there's like references to real life in the lyrics too, but they're timeless things. They're not like I'm sitting in this IKEA chair type of lyrics.
yeah. All right. Well, I'll just have to say that in my review, I wrote that it hadn't passed the test of time yet, Kuusumu, but by now I think it really has. So
Great. I have to admit that I listen to quite a bit of music, but this 2022 was so super busy for me that I actually haven't listened to Kuusumu on vinyl or on CD. Neither have I listened to the Her Shadow album nor the Kuolemanlaakso EP, so I don't even know what they sound like. I've been listening to the mix tracks and stuff like that, but I've been so busy that, well, at least some people are listening to it like other than me, so I don't have to.
yeah. Well, I can tell you that it sounds great.
Well, all right, great.
Well, it was really fun talking to you. This interview will be up tomorrow, maybe on Metal Storm.
Okay.
And yeah, so if there's nothing else we'd like to add, maybe we could wrap it up here.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thanks for taking the time.
Yes, of course. Thanks for making a really great album.
No problem.
I will check out Her Shadow. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah, check it out. There's like 2 music videos on YouTube, and then the whole album is on Spotify and elsewhere.
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
All right. Then goodbye then, I guess. And thanks for this interview.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.